What you guys doing out there? You looking for another episode of Homesteads and Homeschools, the podcast? You're in luck. You downloaded the right show. Today's episode number 44, which means you can find all the show notes at homesteadsandhomeschools.com/044. Folks, it is the last Tuesday in November, which means this month of musically inclined guests is at an end. Go back on your feed and check it out. Episode 41 was Mr. Jordan Page. 42 was Mr. Jordan Taylor. And 43 was Mr. Mastermark. And this week, episode number 44, Mr. Jason Reichert. Some of you may know him as JJ Boogie. He spent some time gigging, does some music, and got hooked up with Arrested Development. And he's been playing with them, going on tours, playing music, and doing his thing. So he was kind enough to come on today. He has 2 children that are homeschooled, and that'd be a kind of fun discussion talk to have to see how that homeschooling looks when you're on the road on occasion. You know, you're not there and able to do things hands-on all the time. How that looks, how that worked out. I enjoyed this conversation, and I have no doubt that you will as well. If for you more astute listeners out there, you noticed that in between music sort of has been changing, and you can find all those tracks over on Spotify. There's a Homesteads and Homeschools playlist. The last 3 weeks, my musical guests that actually have music that they've created, I've used their music for that interlude there. Today's a little different. The music I will be playing in the interlude, some beats put together by JJ Sun Rhythm. You will not find them on Spotify. You will not find this on Spotify. I don't believe it's there just yet. Maybe one day it'll be there. But either way, you heard it here first, folks. The chicken didn't play Uno. Enjoy it. So let's go plant those Liberty Seeds with Mr. JJ Boogie. So, JJ Boogie, Jason Reichert, thank you for coming on and talking to us today about your homeschool journey that you guys have decided to undertake.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey.
All right. So, as I said earlier, you're a music guy. What was that like growing up as a kid? Were you a music guy as a kid? Or did you go to public school as a kid? What was your kind of...
Yeah, I went to all government schools, and my dad was a musician, not professionally, but he had growing up, I had an amazing record collection, my dad's record collection. So, and he was always supportive of me wanting to play music. So I got, my first drum set when I was like 8, and a piano when I was 12. My grandmother bought us a piano, and the whole nine. So, yeah. And then, but my elementary school was only a few blocks away. So I walked to school every day. And we moved out to Alpharetta, Georgia, and I was horrified by the way the kids acted in the school out here. It was like a bunch of rich, snobs that were just out of control. I remember coming home and telling my mom, I want to go to a private school. Can I go to Marist? She's like, we can't afford that. I was like, I didn't even want to be in that public school. I hated it.
Where did you move from?
Doraville, Georgia.
Okay.
Out to Alpharetta, Georgia. And back then, Alpharetta was, it's the suburbs, but back then it was still kind of partially country, but it was a lot of new neighborhoods coming up. And, like back in the 70s, my dad would take me fishing the Chattahoochee River. Back when certain roads that are now 4 or 5 lanes were just 2-lane roads, it was country. But yeah, so Alpharetta is where we ended up moving out to.
Now, did you take lessons? Did you just learn kind of by ear? Did your father teach you, or how'd you figure out the music end of things? Because I've tried and I can't do it. So.
Oh, yeah, I had. It was funny initially. I got this toy drum set and I would just bang on it and I didn't know what I was doing. I was about 8 or 9, 8 when I got my first kit. And then these 3 single dudes moved into the house next door to us. And I remember I was out playing basketball in the driveway and I heard live music jamming next door. And I was like, Mom, they're playing music next door. And, she always loved music. They would take me to see live shows and stuff. But I didn't, at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. They knew I had a passion for it. So my mom walked me next door, knocked on the door, and some girl answered the door and she's like, hey, my son loves music. And, we heard you get the jamming. So she brought us down there and there's this 3-piece, this guy on drums, guy on bass, and a guy on, it was just bass and drums. They were just jamming. And the bass player was like this Florida looking sandy blonde hippie dude with the big, long, mustache, handlebar mustache, no shirt on, cut off jeans, and barefoot. And he had a boa constrictor dangling around his neck. My mom's like, oh. And then they're like, hey, come on in, and literally they seemed cool though. So my mom's like, they're like, yeah, he could stay and watch, So my mom left me there at this total stranger's house, our next door neighbors. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the drummer and, I was like, okay, I have my drum set at home and I'm watching what he was doing while they were jamming. And I was like, so I started making movements like mimicking him and he saw me and he's like, hey, do you want to try? And I'm like, yeah. So I sat down on the drum set and he was just like, here you go. And then so I just started imitating what he was doing and the bass player started playing. So immediately I was playing a groove with this bass player, my first time jamming. And then the guitar player, I didn't realize it also played, the drummer also played guitar. So he was like, keep playing, keep playing. So he went over and picked up his guitar and we started jamming. I'm just barely holding on to the groove, and I'd mess up. And they're like, it's okay, it's okay. So that was my first experience playing. And then I started taking lessons as I got a little bit older. I found a local drum instructor and I started playing, started taking lessons and stuff. And
nice.
Yeah, and then started a garage band with some kids in the neighborhood. We'd play Black Sabbath and, Kiss, Detroit Rock City and, stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's, I can just kind of imagine, how that must be the first time you actually kind of get into something and to have that surrounding you. Must have been something. Is that something, if you had just gone straight into lessons, do you think you would have been as enthralled with it as you were? Is it something that you think you would have stuck with or?
Probably not. I never really did well with lessons. With my drum instructor, I learned some stuff, but I really just kind of relied on instinct. I'd have somebody show me something in the moment, and then I would go with it. When I was 15, some coworkers of my parents were starting a band. One of the people in the band was my uncle, and they were doing classic rock and blues and stuff like that, like ZZ Top, like early ZZ Top stuff. And I remember they were like, we're looking for a drummer and we know Jason plays drums, why don't we have him coming out? So my dad drove me, I was 15, drove me over to the bass player's house. I didn't know what I was doing, And the bass player's like, all right, we're going to play this song by ZZ Top. It's a shuffle. And I'm like, what's a shuffle? And he was like, and he would just mouth it to me, and I would just mimic what he played or what he, mouthed to me. And that was really, and then I listened to the song. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. So it was really all mostly by ear. And I was reading some basic charts, but I wasn't really like a sight reader or anything. But yeah, even as a kid, when I took piano lessons, I hated taking piano lessons, even though I loved playing piano. For some reason, the sight, reading music and then doing stuff with feeling always messed me up. It always messed me up. So I was more a feel type player and somebody that played by ear.
Did you play in high school, like in the high school band or anything? I don't know how that was back then, but I know down here now, we just moved in. There's like people love marching bands down here, or Spirit Squad or whatever the heck it is. I don't know. Was that around?
No, I was very athletic growing up, and I played football actually. So I was kind of an artistic jock, I guess. I mean, I never really fit in with the redneck jocks at my high school. But I was on the football team, and at our high school, we were known for losing like all the time. And I remember just at the high school games, like the Friday nights, like just getting pummeled by the opposing team. And I would look up and watch the band, the high school marching band. No matter how bad we're losing, they're having fun, banging on the drums, blowing their horns. And I remember sometimes thinking, man, I'd rather be up there playing, banging on a bass drum or a snare drum or something, as opposed to being down here all sweaty, getting hurt, So I never did the marching band thing, but I was friends with a lot of those people.
Yeah. It's because it's one of those things, I mean, sports was a big part for me, and there's not a lot of mixing and matching between the two. It seems like sometimes, it's kind of one or the other, but it's neat that you kind of cross that bridge a little bit, at least. Maybe not in school, but outside of it.
Well, I had a different route than a lot of people that start off doing marching band stuff, because I started off playing in clubs, like 21 clubs, even though I was 15. I was literally gigging, on the weekends when I didn't, not during football season, I was playing, but if there was a Saturday night, I would be gigging. And sometimes if there was a club that was 18 and up, a lot of my high school friends would sneak in. Mm-hmm. Sometimes get kicked out, when they come out, so, I know a lot of people that start off in marching band and then they get into professional playing later. I was opposite. I just started gigging like in clubs and biker parties and, crazies. Like I'd be driving home when I finally got my driver's license. I would get home at like 4 or 5 in the morning from gigging all night. And my dad would be up reading the morning paper and having coffee, and he'd be like, "Hey, good morning." I'm like, "Good night." I'd be crashing out. He was just getting up,
That's funny. Now, did you go to college afterwards, or did you go straight into music?
Well, I was gigging. I was making money, not a lot, but for a teenager, it's like, hey, $60 for playing drums for a few hours. I'm like, yeah, But I went to a community college for, I think, a quarter and a half, and then I just quit. I just couldn't. I just hated it. And then I was very burnt out because I went to summer school every summer while I was in high school. I failed, like my freshman year, I failed so many classes I had to make up for summer school. Sophomore year, I failed classes. I was always having to catch up because I failed classes because I was a horrible student in high school.
All right. So I guess, was that something that kind of you thought about as you decided to have kids, or when you had kids, did you think at all about your school experience, your high school experience, your college experience, or was that?
I don't know if it was a conscious thought, like because of my experience. It was just, now I have more of a realization of how, or more of an understanding too, of how horrible, a lot of state schooling is. And then especially where we live in Austell, the local schools aren't very good. I mean, even if we lived in an area that had better schools, I would, probably still be homeschooling.
So is that when they were born, was that something that you planned on homeschooling them, or is it kind of?
Yeah, I wanted to. I think my wife was a little hesitant because I think she was just insecure about it. I was insecure about it too because I was never a good student, and I'm like, we'll see what happens. But I mean, really, when my son was really young, I would put him on my knee and play these little ABC videos and just get him counting videos. And so he was learning to count, learning his ABCs like really, really early. I think his reading skills are a little higher than most kids his age already. Yeah, which is cool. He's reading big words, and using big words now that I'm like, wow, you're 8 and you're saying that stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy when they do that. They use words that they shouldn't be using. They're not bad words, but like, they're just too old for them. You're like, wait a minute, how did you do that? But when you let them kind of explore and read those books and do those things that they want to do, that interest them, they pick it up, And,
yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
So your wife, you think she just wasn't sure of the whole homeschooling thing, or was it?
Yeah,
what was her hesitancy there, I guess?
Well, she did not trust. She didn't want him going to a horrible government school either.
Okay.
We looked. I think she went and looked at the school my son would have gone to, and she was just like, eh. And then read some ratings and and stuff other parents said, and was like, yeah, I don't. She has a natural distrust, as well, even though she's like not political or anything. She's very apolitical, but I'm working on her.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. All right. So, I don't know. So you guys didn't, it sounds like you didn't start like a kindergarten curriculum when he turned 5 or 6 or whatever. You just kind of broke it in as your son kind of came into it, or how did that start?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a kindergarten thing. I mean, we started off with very basic things, obviously, to build the foundation. My wife, I started off, ABCs and stuff, and then my wife was starting to teach both kids, even though Phoenix was younger, our daughter, she was a little too young to learn, even though we were teaching her. She was like horrible in class. She was really like, just spaced out. But my son was picking up stuff very quickly, but he was hard to deal with. Like if he didn't want to do a certain subject or whatever, it was like, man, it was a constant fight, And then it got to a point where my wife started getting overwhelmed. Plus, I was, I would be traveling too. So I'd be out of the country for a month on tour with the rest of the development, so that was just stressful for my wife. And then it got to a point where she was butting heads with my son because he was so hard-headed, and stubborn. And so she was just like, all right, you're going to take over him for a while. I'm like, that's fine. And then Phoenix started getting older where she started getting things. And even though she's only 6, we've been working with her with like kindergarten and first grade, introduction to first grade stuff already. But so now, like for all this year, it's just been, we've separated where Phoenix was with my mom and my son, his name is Rhythm. He's with me. So I've been teaching him. So we split up duties. So that's what we've been doing for this entire year, where I only take on my son, and then my wife handles my daughter. And it's been working a lot better. We still, my son's gotten a lot better about being stubborn. But now there's other issues that come up where if he gets overwhelmed or if he feels like he's going to mess up, like he's like a perfectionist. So like this morning, for instance, I pulled out this cursive handwriting exercises that we haven't done in a while. I wanted to revisit them. And he couldn't remember how to write certain words. So I was like, well, that's why we practice. And he started crying. He's like, I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. I can't remember how to do it. And then I'm just like, And then once he starts shutting down, it's hard to pull him back out. It's almost like you have to just stop and go do something else, take a break, and then come back. But sometimes I don't have time to do that. I'm like, man, just do it, you know?
I know. Yeah. Yeah. That's my son went through some of that, just that stubborn, I think it's almost like in age range, because our younger two daughters are kind of doing it. Our youngest son isn't quite there yet, but
yeah,
there's something about it like that. Like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, I think it's 5, 6, 7, maybe. I don't know. But he just like, there was things that he wanted to do, things that he enjoyed doing, whatever that was, math or reading or something. And that was what he wanted to do. And you try to break them out of that and say, okay, we got to do this other thing. And it was like a fight to do it, you know? Yeah. And now he enjoys doing, you know, pretty much all of it. You know, but again, it's back and forth. But that's the glory of this whole homeschooling thing, though, is that, you know, it's, if you're getting tired of working with a kid, you know, you have that option of asking a spouse for help, of asking, you know, your parent, a grandparent, or somebody else to help you out for a little bit and give you a break, you know? And it's better for everybody, I think, at that point. But
yeah, no doubt.
All right. So, and now you guys, do you use a curriculum, or do you just kind of put it together yourselves? Or
well, we don't have I know some people that have done online curriculums. I mean, we have books. We got these. So there's like a grade 2 math workbooks and you know, geography and handwriting and science, language arts. You know, so my wife has bought a bunch of books. I just wanted to make sure they weren't all like common core, like convoluted stuff. And some of it is, and you know, but also a friend of ours who's been homeschooling her kids for a while gave us this book called Home Learning Year by Year: How to Design a Homeschool Curriculum from Preschool through High School. You ever heard of that? By Rebecca Rupp. So it's been helpful seeing what we need to study, and it's got a lot of suggestions year by year. So I've been going through that too, and then I got the Tuttle Twins, all the Tuttle Twins books, and my son, we've read them all. We started them early with him to where, you know, he didn't quite understand it, but he was enjoying the story, but now he's starting to understand it more to where, you know, he's like, you know, he's like, I don't want a dystopian future. I'm like, yeah, I don't either. And this is why you need to know this stuff.
Yeah, my kids love those books. Like I had them in a box, you know, and I'm very careful with my books. I like, you know, I'm anal. That's one thing in my life I am pretty anal about, is my books. But you know, they found them in the box and they like read through them all and they really enjoyed them. And I was like, oh, this is great, you know. And then I kind of start asking about what's inside and what it all means, and they start making sense of things. It's like, oh man, all right, here we go. But it's good, and they are really, they're great books for adults and for kids. And I know,
I think I actually want my wife to read the Tuttle Twins books because it'll help her as a grown adult understand some of the stuff that I deal with on a deeper level, you know. But and she's gonna start going through them with our daughter. So
nice. I think Connor Boyack there, he's I think they're putting together some like curriculum that goes with that.
Yeah, I've seen the workbooks. I haven't gotten those yet, but
okay. Yeah. I didn't know if they're out yet. I know he was.
They have some,
talking about putting them out. So should be a good.
I like hard copies of everything. You know, so that's, you know, just more money. So. But it's funny that you talk about like just earlier about like how did your wife feel about the homeschooling thing, and like even my mom and my mother-in-law, I think were like, what, really, you're gonna homeschool? Like, well, yeah. And they were skeptical. But you know, when we have those weekends where the kids spend time with them, they're like, they were perfect. They were perfect behaved, and they're freaking out at how smart. Like my daughter's smart too, but they're like my mom is like, he is so smart. Even my sister, they're always in awe of how smart they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're like geniuses or anything, but they're, my son is really smart, and I mean, it amazes me sometimes. I'm like, man, he's way smarter than I was when I was his age. I mean, light years. I was not doing the things he was, or you had the same vocabulary that he did, So now it's cool seeing how, like how my mom likes, now my mom is like, I don't know how you do it, but I'm glad you're doing it. She sees the positive effects of homeschooling and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's tricky, sometimes finding the time to do it, finding the resources to do it, both financial and mental, But did you say your mom helps out a little bit once in a while?
My mom doesn't, not in the time-wise sense. She'll financially sometimes if she knows I'm having a hard month, I don't ask for help.
Right.
But
Yeah.
every once in a while she'll call me and be like, "Hey, I deposited some money into your account." I'm like, "What?" Because I don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's only been a handful of times where I've called her and be like, "Mom, I need some help right now." Like financially, I hate doing that with anything. But this year, it's been the slowest year work-wide. Like my workload has been cut in half with Arrested Development. This year has been the slowest year. And I told you I was supposed to be in Dubai right now, but the gig didn't get canceled. It got rescheduled. But still, I was counting on that paycheck this week or this month to take care of some bills, So, so I've been having to hustle in other areas, studio work and local and stuff like that. But we're managing, we're just having to be more frugal with our money and time, and but her help is usually financial. Every once in a while, she'll be like, hey, but who's extremely helpful is my mother-in-law. She basically like our nanny. So on the weekends, every weekend I'm gigging with my wife. If I'm not on tour with the rest of development, I'm doing local shows, even though they're not near, they're a fraction of the amount of money I would make at a Arrested Development gig. But it's every little dollar helps, right? So even if I'm playing a local club or a cafe or whatever restaurant, whatever the venue is, it's like, hey, those help pay bills too, phone bill or, and the Arrested Development gigs takes care of mortgage,
Yeah. It's funny to see that kind of. My mom was that way a little bit when we started doing the homeschooling thing. She was a teacher. She just retired, but like,
yeah.
So there was some apprehension about that, like, wait a minute, you're going to homeschool them? Like she's an elementary teacher and I can understand that, but after we started and after we've been doing it for a little while and, when she got done and she retired and she saw it all, she was surprised at how well it can go and how much the kids actually do learn and
right.
all those sort of fears that you have coming into it. I think like, that it's not going to be structured and your kids are going to wake up at whenever and never brush their teeth and all this stuff that goes with it. And they're going to be antisocial. And it just like, it's not really how it has to be at all. Like, it's,
God, the antisocial thing, man, the kids are so good socially with other kids. They're so loving and kind. Like with kids that are younger, my son is very sweet and gentle. He gets like, I'm like, I kind of shudder to think how he would be if he'd been going to government schools, picking up things like just at our neighborhood pool. You could see like how like sometimes he's in like baffled at how disrespectful other kids are, like to their parents or to their siblings. He's like, wow, that's a bad kid. I'm like, yeah, it's probably not very good parenting. It's probably not a bad kid. He just needs better parenting.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the things, especially the relationships between age levels. Like I don't, it's all anecdotal, but I mean, every time see the kids interacting, like there's not a lot of, big kids picking on the little kids, like bullying them and pushing them around. It's usually one that's, more helpful or, we're going to play this game. And okay, so the little kid gets like this crappy part that, you just sit there and do whatever. And that, but they're not being like overly mean to them. And I think back to the school bus and elementary playgrounds and stuff like that. And it's certainly not how it worked, but,
oh yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. My son is very helpful with his little sister. Like, he loves to teach her. Like he's very eager to teach her something or help her with something. Don't get me wrong, he'll have his stingy moment where he's like, I don't want you to play with my toy, or I want to be left alone. But then again, they spend so much time together. 99% of the time they get along great. They'll play all day long with no hiccups. They're laughing for hours, playing for hours. But yeah, obviously, just like we're human, so we need breaks from each other sometimes. But there are homeschool groups where they'll go out and they have play dates, and they have friends that they play with, but so they get that aspect as well. So
now, do you guys do music with your kids? I mean, I know your wife does music as well, and
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's funny because we were talking about lessons earlier. I wanted to have my son take piano lessons, like so he could learn to read music and stuff. So a year ago, we signed him up. He started butting heads with his instructor. Oh my God, it got awful. He was doing great though. He was reading music. He was playing piano. He was like, as far as doing the work, like and learning, he was learning, but he just hated like taking lessons like I did, and so that just turned into a disaster. So we stopped, and I'm like, oh man. But now he sees me, I make a lot of hip hop beats and stuff. I'm producing hip hop tracks for clients, my boss, and my own band for other artists. He sees all the music production I do and the recording that my wife and I do. So now he's like, I want to make a beat. I'm like, okay. So I showed him he's programming MIDI. He loves electronic. He loves Deadmau5. The DJ Deadmau5.
Yeah.
He loves like that electronic. So I taught him how to program his own beats. So now he knows how to come in here, open up the software. He knows how to use my MIDI controller. He knows how to turn on all my gear in my studio. And I taught him how to save the session. And now he's doing intricate, pretty advanced stuff for 8-year-old. Advanced stuff, like all his timing is on beat. I mean, and now there's literally over 24 a dozen beats that he's made. I'm basically at the point I got to go get another hard drive because I'm thinking about literally getting one just for him because now he's cluttering up my hard drive with his own work.
Nice. Have you sold any of them? Have you put your name on any of them and shipped them off to
someone? Hey, I thought about it. No, some of them are really, really good ideas that need to be developed, and so we've talked about printing them and putting them like on SoundCloud or something, or I'm like, hey, maybe you could release I told him you could really make your own album if you want, and you know what his response was? I'm not ready yet. I'm like, okay,
that's awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. That's really unique. It
is. It's awesome. He loves it, and he's very musical. But he's kind of like me, to where he likes to explore things on his own, and he just doesn't do well with structured lessons. He does better with like learning from like I'll teach him something real quick, but he doesn't like me to teach him too much. Like if I say, hey, let me sit down, let me show you something, he'll be like, I don't want to. But if I do something and he's like, hey, how did you do that? Then he's cool with me showing him something. It's funny how that works.
That little bit of buy-in.
Yeah. Now my daughter, she wants to take guitar lessons and piano lessons. And I think she's going to do well with taking lessons, like formal lessons. She has that kind of mindset to where she wants to learn that stuff. And so they're both very musical. They're both very artistic. They draw constantly, color and draw. I don't know if you remember a couple weeks back, my son, he made this drawing, this beautiful drawing, and he colored it. And he said, he asked me one day, how do I get my artwork out to the world? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I want to sell this art. I'm like, oh, really? I said, well, I could take a picture of it and post it on, on Facebook and Instagram. And I was like, how much do you want to sell it for? He goes, $10, $10. I was like, okay. I was like, oh, whatever. So I took a picture of it and I threw it up on Instagram and Facebook. I was like, hey, this is my son's drawing. He wants to sell this for $10. Any takers? Well, next thing you know, this one guy is a libertarian. He's like, I'll do it. I'll buy it. And then that's another person after him was like, I'll do it for 20. And then turned into an auction. So I sold it, and I got PayPal the money, and he was flipping out. So he started doing more art. He made like $70 something that week selling art from my Facebook page. People were buying it up. He took a break, and we mailed them out. We put them like very nicely, a stiff cardboard over it so they didn't get bent up. We put a little plastic over it. He wrote a thank you note to everybody that bought it. And then he took a break from his art, and then he did it again. He's like, I want to buy. I mean, he had some toys he wanted to buy. So he started learning, I need to sell some art so I could buy these Legos, So he drew this picture of these sharks underwater with these crayons, and it was very like cartoonish, very cool. So I threw it out there. Any takers? So this one woman private messaged me. She's like, I'll do it for $20. And then this guy who's a local restaurant owner in Atlanta, he's like, I love sharks. He goes, I'll give you $50 for it. And I was like, what? So I probably messaged the woman. I was like, hey, I was about to sell it to her. And I was like, listen, I know you were the first person to offer money, but this other guy's offering 50. She's like, hey, take the $50. I'll buy another piece later. And so sure enough, he sold that one piece, this cartoon drawing of these sharks. And it was a brilliant picture. Like, sharks had these funny faces, and it was very good. And yeah, so he made another, like that week, he made $95 off of artwork of different pieces of art. So
that's awesome. That's a great experience too,
Yeah, it's learning to be an entrepreneur and businessman.
Connecting the dots. That's great. That's great. Well, what does it look like when you go, so if you're going to go to Dubai, you were in Dubai today, how does that work for homeschooling stuff? Do the kids kind of get a little bit of a break? Is it, your wife picks it up, or how does that work?
My son will get a break. My wife will probably do easier things with him, like put on some science videos for kids. He loves science. Science is probably his favorite subject. He freaks out over science projects. But yeah, typically she'll still continue with Phoenix, but he'll get a break, from doing the hard stuff. But I'm not a heavily touring musician. So I'm like, it's maybe once a year I'm gone for a month. Usually I'm gone for a few days and I'm back. So, yeah.
All right. I don't know. Any last thoughts about, homeschooling?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, the past few days have been extremely frustrating with homeschooling. And it's funny because I've talked to other parents and other, even my mom, and I'm like, it's not like something I enjoy doing. Like, I don't hate it or anything, but I do it because I love my kids, and I want them to have a better education. I want them to learn, from me. I want to teach them. So it's not like this super enjoyable thing. Sometimes it is great. And, and I do love when he gets excited about learning certain things, and when seeing him get things and hearing him read, I get really proud of him. But, I know it's not always enjoyable. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It is very hard work. And sometimes I'm like, maybe you should just send them off to, and I'm thinking, you know what? No, I love them. I love them too much. I'm going to take the responsibility, because I love them. Not to say that other parents don't love their kids by sending them to public schools. we're just, we're able to do that with our jobs because we work on the weekends mainly, my wife and I, we'll have some weekly gigs sometimes, but no, it's, we do it because we love them, and we don't really trust, we don't trust what the government's going to do with them, uh,
No, it is. It's. There are days that it is wonderful and you love every minute, and there are days that you don't, and it's work, and you just like anything else. You got to push through some of those hard spots, but
but the fruit of the labor, it's worth it. To see them grow and see what they naturally are interested in. Like I said, he loves science a lot as far as the subjects goes, and we watched this science video a couple days ago, and then from memory, there was a magnet experiment that he saw, and he recreated it in his room all by himself from memory from a few days ago. And he was like, "Dad, come here, watch this." And he explained to me the whole thing, and then he did the experiment, and I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing." I'm like, and I forgot that. I was like, "Where did you get that from?" He goes, "From the Science Max video, on YouTube." I'm like, "Oh yeah." And so I videotaped him explaining it again. I sent it to my mom, and my mom was like freaking out, like, "What?" I'm like, "I know." His memory is just amazing. So it's cool seeing him do stuff like that. But yeah.
Good deal. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and wish you luck with it as it goes forward.
Yeah.
Folks, and that was JJ Boogie. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did. I always do. This is a fun thing to do. I enjoy it, so I do it. Anyway, thank you, Jason, for coming on and doing that. I was a poor host and forgot to ask him where I can find his music now. He and his wife have a band called, or a duo, I guess. I don't know. Called Fire and the Knife, and they play in and around the Atlanta area. And who knows where else you might be able to catch them, but you can find them on Facebook and Instagram, and I will put those links in the show notes. So go homesteadsandhomeschools.com/044, and you will find the links there to go tell Jason you appreciate his music. This is Thanksgiving is coming up, guys. Of course, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. If you want to support the show, click over to Amazon before you buy your Christmas junk, and homesteadsandhomeschools.com/Amazon. Click through the affiliate link. I get a little kickback, helps offset the cost of putting this thing together. There's some costs in there, so it's nice to kind of offset those when you can. You can always go over to patreon.com/thelibertyhippie and sign up that way. You get some merchandise, some stickers, some seeds, bonus episodes, bonus content, bonus interviews. Also, head over to Facebook and search for the Homesteaded Homeschool Forum. That is the Facebook group that coincides with this, and there's some past guests on there. There's some past guests in there. There is if I have a guest coming up, and sometimes I'll ask listeners for questions, ideas. What do you want to hear about? You can get some input on how the show goes together through that channel, or you can do it in the new Discord server that I have set up, and I will link to that in the show notes because that link is a little funky, a little hard to remember. I will do that. So homesteadsandhomeschools.com/044 for all the goodies you need, all the links you need. And Thursday is Thanksgiving. It's also the last Thursday of the month, so I will have a little bonus show, a little update on things happening around here. That's all for today, folks. If you're traveling, be safe. If you're not traveling, enjoy yourself and enjoy the season. Enjoy your friends, family, and all the things that you are thankful for. right? Because there's got to be something. You're breathing. All right, folks. Thanks again, you guys, and get out there, sow those seeds of liberty, and we can all reap sheaves of freedom together.